Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We are here. We've got teams to discuss that have been eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs. We have teams that have staved off elimination and forced game sixes. We have a game 5 tonight between Vegas and Dallas, which I think has been consistently the best series, with 4 games all won by the road team. But we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, I just want to mention that, the photo that Ryan Whitney put out the other day was horrible, and we talked about it.
Yeah.
But then I don't understand after that what Paul Bissonnette thinks he's doing, because he goes, "This one's family friendly," and it's like, Paul, you understand? You're a human being. I know you understand that the other one was in bad taste.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think you should go to that same well and say, "Well, this is family friendly"? Like, oh, the other one, like, so the other one just offended families, right? No, it offended like 99% of X, and I just don't get it.
Well, okay, and for those, I will not say what the Ryan Whitney cartoon was, but the one that Bissonnette put up that was family friendly was a roaring bear against a roaring Bruin, or a roaring Carlton the Bear, which is the Leafs mascot, and the roaring Boston Bruin. That doesn't take away, Peter, from the offense, from the widespread condemnation of Ryan Whitney, and I haven't seen any kind of apology, and frankly, it's a little late for that. So
it is, and I had this chat. I had to jump off yesterday, but I had this chat with my son. We were talking about it last night. My oldest one is a young adult, and I was a little sort of didn't want to hear any sort of stupidity in that sort of whole barstool sports mentality of things. But my point, I always come back to this with Spit and Chicklets and these guys. Mm-hmm. They were the first ones to come out and absolutely go after Mike Babcock for this rough treatment of players and how horrible he is, and that he asked personal questions and stuff, and that these players are so damaged and traumatized by Mike Babcock wanting to know something about their personal lives and all this stuff, and created that thing. Apparently unacceptable. But insinuating sexual assault is, just because it's a joke in the playoffs, right, and that it does, like, you can't have it both ways, guys. You're either a martyr, you're either a believer in causes and people's dignity and everything, or you're not. Yeah. So which is it? Like, I've got a whole bunch of things I wouldn't dare say on there what I think about Pink Whitney and all that stuff. But, I guarantee you it wasn't used for some very good things at one point. But the point where I would go to, and that's a dumb thing to say, Pete, shouldn't say that. But it's just, this is the kind of nonsense that I would expect, particularly a guy who's on ESPN, has to be better at doing in terms of understanding your role and the responsibility you have when you have a platform.
You mean
TNT. Sorry, yeah.
No, that's okay.
Right? You have to be able to understand that you have an influence, and you have responsibilities with this. So the family friendly or the PC version or whatever, it doesn't undo what's there. Hockey has an incredibly messed up culture around sexual assault. We have 3 or 4 current NHL players away from their teams right now dealing with this, and hopefully it all comes out and the right thing, and everything's done properly, and we have the right sort of resolution to it all. It doesn't change that the underlying thing is, when you make insinuated jokes about stuff like this, right, it sort of allows it allows the feeling of saying, we can get away with a little bit.
Yeah, and let's just say this. Bissonnette was the conduit for the information on Babcock. He was that by somebody on the team because they didn't like it. So, I mean, I give him credit for that, but it wasn't like he was Mike Wallace and he broke the story.
No, like Dan says, TNT likes the edgy humor. Okay, but you know what? You don't need it. Like, hockey's a good enough sport. There's enough going on in the world. If you scour Twitter and you watch the games, you'll find plenty of good things that you could report on that are funny, that are edgy, or whatever. Don't make them contrived situations.
But the point here, Russ, is Whitney's not even on TNT
No, I
or ESPN. He's on the Spit and Chicklets podcast, which main claim to fame is it ruined Jeremy Roenick's career because he was stupid and said something on a podcast that got him fired and ostracized. I don't know if I've ever. I've listened to it. I listened to it once just to find out whether I liked it or not. Didn't like it and haven't listened again. But enough people have been on it. Honestly, I would like if I was the NHL. And there's not been an apology, I would do my utmost to make my players not go on that show. But I don't think that'll happen because it'll be bad.
That won't happen because the players can do whatever they want.
It'll be bad PR. It will be bad PR. But It was disgusting. It was offensive. And a lot of people, talked out about it. And I didn't see an apology. So, screw Ryan Whitney. Okay, let's start the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, May the 1st, May Day, 2024.
I'm Pete Tessier in liberated Winnipeg.
I'm Russ Cohen in Sportsology. 89 degrees here, no snow. Sorry, Calgary.
And I'm Comrade Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on Hockey Buzz. Just kidding. The Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, let's start with the teams that were eliminated last night. We'll start with the Colorado Avalanche eliminating the Winnipeg Jets. In 5 games. The first game was wildly entertaining and wide open. And then from that point, Georgiev solidified a little bit and made the saves that he needed to.
A little bit? He was a better goalie.
Would you let me finish?
As long as you tell the truth.
I was going to if you'd let me finish. And Connor Hellebuck, who's going to win the Vezina, was on the tailpipe. He was terrible. And that, I think, was one of the main causes for the Jets losing the series. But Pete, there was more than just that.
Yeah. Look, the Avs are a better team. And what they did was they actually did shoot from anywhere and they took a lot of shots and they weren't fearful of things going wrong. And I mentioned this last night, and it became incredibly obvious. There are 2 critical things in the Jets' tactics that they did that actually just supercharged the Avs. One, the Avs are a faster team, and they got a more diverse, skilled forward group. But what they did was they gave the Avs the blue line all series long, and that's just cataclysmic for managing your own zone. 2, the Jets consistently skated themselves out of position. The Avs they stayed close. They held to their positions. So when they had to jump to make a check, they were there in both zones and in the neutral zone. There was all this talk. I think it was Gary Galley saying, well, the Avs dare you to take it down the middle and stuff. Well, that's actually some of the areas where the Jets had the most success. But when you aren't on your transition game, when you're out of sync, and the Jet, and I give the Avs credit, they were doing a lot of very delicate and sometimes not so delicate obstruction to make that happen. Mm-hmm. You've got to find a way around that. And there was no adjustments by the Jets. And that's where a lot of the heat's coming right now is in the 3rd period, the game's tied. Bonus goes back to his old lines. So he changes them for the first 2 periods. They get an opening goal, even though it was an own goal, blah, blah, blah. They tie it up. Things are going well. They're out shooting them in the 2nd period. He goes back in the 3rd period. And his logic after the game was, well, I want to get a couple other guys going. But immediately you go back and they come back and score a goal. Then they score another one. So you're down by 2 and they get an empty netter. All because you went away from what was actually working better than the previous 3 games. So there's this baffling sense of what's going on there. And frankly, the Avs just knew what to do. The Jets were lost. And not only were they the better team in their ability to prepare as individual players, they're the better team in their tactics and execution as well. And it showed. They took advantage of a team that was flailing. They took a Vezina Trophy finalist and made them look like the goalie that everyone said they had. And hats off to them. You can't put lipstick on a pig with this.
Here's what I would say. So one thing that really was clear to me, and I think teams are going to start to try and copy this, you could look at, McKinnon and all those other things, and they're all great. But what the Avalanche have that a lot of other teams don't is Devin Taves, Cale Makar, and Sam Girard. 3 super mobile defensemen that can really move the puck, but that also are good at retrieving the puck. They may not be physical, but they do all those other things, right? It's really hard when a team has those guys to try and match up against them. It seems like that team is always on the rush as a result because they got those 3 guys. And if you add Sean Walker, that's maybe the most mobile top 4 in the league.
And this is a team that traded Byram, so they had 4 or 5. Well, and they got Walker, but and then they have Manson, who's a really good, solid defensive, physical defenseman. I mean,
you look at that. That's an advantage. Georgiev was the better goalie. He definitely got his stuff together.
Right.
Just knowing him for his career, I just didn't bail on him. I know a lot of reporters were just reporting what they saw. Like he wasn't doing good. Maybe he was going to be replaced. I didn't think he would be replaced. He didn't, and he rose to the occasion. But that wasn't the reason they won. They just needed decent goaltending. Like Georgiev's never going to win them the Stanley Cup or anything like that. If they get decent goaltending, I think we're all just realizing it's hard to cover the Avs.
Yeah, I mean,
a super deep team, and I don't think the Winnipeg Jets are super deep.
They won with Darcy Kemper, who's now a backup in Washington. Right. So yeah, I mean, if he gives them average goaltending, sort of like Vegas got with, I mean, Aiden Hill stepped up in the final, but and the semifinal against Edmonton, but they have average goaltending, but the team in front of them is so good. So
and Nichushkin is the modern day Esa Tikkanen. I mean, he is a playoff performer, man.
Yeah. Tell that to Lindy Ruff. So do you think, Pete, and then we'll go move on to the other series where a team was eliminated. Do you think that there will be any ramifications in terms of Winnipeg bowing out early, shovel day off, bonus, roster? What do you think?
Sorry, say it again, Mike. I was just getting a text from my wife.
Yeah, no problem. That takes precedence. Even though I don't have one. What do you think the ramifications of the early exit will be? Shovel day off, bonus, roster. Do you think changes? What do you think?
When I say this based on how the organization behaves. Mm-hmm. There is an unyielding sense of loyalty and forgiveness that comes from the ownership. And you have what should happen versus what do I think will happen are 2 different things. What I think will happen is shovel day off and bonus will sit down and they'll have a chat. They'll talk about how the season went, what his energy levels at, because the club has an option for next year. Given that Bonus has stepped away from the team twice this season, once for some surgery, the other with his wife, I'm curious if maybe they've had a bit of a time and say, hey, what do we want to do with the rest of our time? Money's not an object. We can go live our life and do whatever it is. What do we want to do? Sure. I think that's going to come into play for the Bonuses, and it should. He's earned that right. Mm-hmm. I think for the Jets, it's come in that, if you're Chevy, you probably don't want to sound offensive, but you want to basically say, hey, this might be the way to go. We have to look at some change, given some things here. Mm-hmm. And this is a good opportunity for you to maybe, we're going to go this way. We think it's best that we go this way without you or whatever. So there's a natural thing where they don't have to pick it up. And he knew there was a variable that would only be 2 years too. Mm-hmm. And everyone can sort of hold their heads high and say, this is the next step. Thank you for getting us there. You'll be an important part of what it is. Would you like a consultancy gig or whatever it is? What happens after that, though, is a bigger sort of thing. The architect of all of this is Kevin Cheveldayoff. Mm-hmm. And he's now had a 2015, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2022, and 2023 and 2024 shots, trade deadlines and stuff. And only once has he made it to the Western Conference Final, where he got lost in 5 games to the Vegas Knights, who basically had Marc-Andre Fleury standing on his head. I mean, he out-goalied a Vezina. So it's not working. There's something missing in the ingredients. So how many times do you let the architect, who keeps missing the mark, come back and keep fixing it.
Right.
I would expect that nothing cataclysmic has happened. The strong season will wipe away any bitterness of the playoffs over time.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll roll back the same thing with some changes. They've got to make some changes on defense. I don't know if Neil Pionk can actually show his face in the city right now. There's a lot of venom out for him right now. Like it's pretty actually bad. And he should just get out of town. And
He's saying he can't go to Cabela's and hang out.
No, he's probably not sitting at the bar tonight. Just drowning in his sorrows.
Unless it's Hemlock.
Yeah, there needs to be some thinking about what the future holds. And if you're going to go through change, who's a coach or a leader who can manage change? And that might already be within the organization with Scott Arniel. I would suspect that given the way the organization plays, if Bonus isn't re-signed, Chevy and Arniel have a big chat about what the next 3 years could look like, because chances are Arniel would want a 3-year deal if he was to be offered the head coaching job. And I don't think they would go outside if he said he'd like it. I think they'd run with that. It saves some headaches.
I think Bonus has to say he's out before that happens.
Yeah, but I think that's going to happen, Russ.
Okay.
And then I think they would look to Arniel first and give him right first to negotiate, and then figure out what the 3 years is. Again,
the disappointing part, Pete, for fans. This is the disappointing part.
Yeah.
When you have billionaire owners that are involved in many, many other things. Just look at Josh Harris. You can make an argument that should have been many other changes, GM included. Just doesn't happen. You can look at your team, Mark Chipman, all the money he has. There's never any immediacy to fire anybody, really. And there was another one that I was thinking of.
Well, the multi-billion-dollar corporation of Rogers and Bell with
nothing. That's good too. Carolina. There's never a talk of Don Waddell's job being in trouble. Ever.
Well, not with Don Waddell, but
but Don Waddell is never in trouble. We're talking about
I'm saying not Don Waddell, but
that's the whole thing. That is my point. When you have these billionaires, they rely on these GMs to do the hockey job, and as long as they're making money, Pete, most of the time they're happy.
Yeah, Mark Chipman's a little different though. He's very involved in things. Oh no, he is. Trust me.
Well, he hasn't fired Chevy, so I can't say he is.
But
you laid out a good case to fire him.
He seems to like what he's doing then.
Well, one of the things you have to understand about Mark Chipman is he is a fairly quiet yet devout Catholic. And one of the core things about Catholics is their ability to forgive. Mm-hmm. And that belief in them of forgiveness and second chances. I could make some bad jokes here, but I won't. That is a core tenet of Mark Chipman, and it underpins his loyalty, and he believes in that same thing. Just like, the Preds struggled for a number of years, David Poile was given those opportunities, and they built something. He sees that. He sees that as the stability model.
Right, but they never really fired David Poile. He just
got
old and retired.
That's why I don't think Chevy's going
still
anywhere.
There.
Right.
No, he's still there.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other team that was eliminated last night. Excuse me, by the way. Oh, there we go. The other team that was eliminated, by the way, was the New York Islanders, who went down to the Carolina Hurricanes. I think we all expected that to happen. I thought the Islanders weren't going to make the playoffs, but they fired Lane Lambert. They brought in Patrick Waugh. Patrick Waugh did a good job at the end of the season. He read the landscape, saw that Sorokin was struggling because they loaded a boatload of games early in the season. He went to Varlamov. They got into the playoffs. But Carolina was the better team. And the thing is, again, the fourth line with the Islanders is no longer good. It's a liability, and they can't score enough. And that was the problem.
Yeah, it's always been the problem, right? Again, there'll be a Lou watch. Whether he gets fired or not, who knows? Patrick Waugh will have the job still, no question.
Well, okay, I was told that ownership loves Lou. So
we still haven't heard that he's coming back next year. So
no, but then Elliot Friedman reported this morning that the hot commodity, Russ, and you'll love this, the hot commodity around the NHL in terms of a GM candidate is one Mark Hunter of the London Knights. He's been linked to Columbus. He's been linked to one other team, and now Elliott reported that he might be linked to the Islanders. Now, he worked with Lamoriello in Toronto. Could this be like Lamoriello is going to be like team president and Hunter would be the GM and do all the legwork?
Lou would never take a position like that.
Well,
ever.
He took it for about 5 minutes in New Jersey and then
he was forced into it, and he will never do it again. Trust me. That is not Lou's style. No. I would just say this, and all my best to Elliott. This just sounds like a Mark Hunter campaign to desperately try and get him back into the NHL, where they've had no interest in him for all these years since Toronto. And I think they went back and looked at those drafts and said, why are we interested in him?
Yeah. No, other than the top picks, his drafts were terrible.
So it's like, I just feel like this is just a campaign, right? And that he's getting swept up in it because that's what he's hearing. But
and that's what happens with these things, right? People have brand names and they have certain things attached. It takes a long time to wear off the brand that appears good or bad.
Yeah.
It just
I'm going to talk about Dan Bilesma, right? Nicest guy in the world. Okay, if you want me to wait, I'll wait.
Yeah. Let's hold off on that because I want to do like a coaching segment. So right now, Colorado is waiting for the winner of Dallas and Vegas, which could go 7 games, and that whoever they play, that's going to be an absolute war. And Carolina and the Rangers are set up to face each other, but they'll wait probably 3 or 4 days because they have to wait till the end of the first round. The NHL is not like the NBA where if there's a matchup, they start it early.
No, they don't start early. Yeah.
They don't. The building assignments.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like it either. The building assignments are there for specific days so that they're not going to move up. The NBA does that. I hate it. Okay, so the two games that extended the series, the Nashville Predators beat Vancouver 2-1, and they go back to Nashville, trailing 3-2. But Peter, the Canucks, the thing again, I don't think the goaltending was an issue yesterday. But the talk is they may go back to DeSmith for Game 6.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this: did you guys see the Preds' first goal?
I did not.
Yeah, I thought it was goalie interference.
I can't believe Talkin didn't
understand why they didn't challenge that.
Yeah, bizarre. I don't think they'll go back because the Canucks' problem isn't the goaltending.
No,
the problem is they're playing a perimeter game and they cannot get anything going inside.
Well, Pettersson seems hurt. We have to, I mentioned
something's not right. Is right with Pettersson. I agree.
Yeah, he's not shooting right.
Yeah, I think if when it ends for the Canucks, we'll hear about something. But the Canucks, there's a lot of weird things going on with them. They're firing passes at almost 95 mile per hour slap shots across the ice. They're like hand grenades to try and control when you need a finesse to get the shot off quickly. They're missing marks and stuff. Nashville is doing a great job of disrupting a skilled forward group who is creative with the puck, and they're keeping them from going inside. Aside from the comeback victory, there's been, where they got 2 goals in close, there's been very little there. And I think Vancouver should go back to thinking about how did they get those goals in that game where they won in overtime, and start playing a little bit more like that. But otherwise, all credit to the Preds. They're doing a marvelous job holding Vancouver to almost no shots. That's the other thing. It's astounding how few shots there are. When you think of where the Canucks were through October, November, December, to what they're doing now, good on the Preds. That's some fine work.
Yeah, the Preds are playing it great. I don't think they'll win either, but they're they extended the series. They made a series of it.
Yeah.
The other game was the one that I was focused on, which was Boston Toronto, and it was sort of a really weird game, Russ, because
I didn't watch a ton of it. I watched more of the end of it.
Well, Toronto dominated, I would say, the first 25 minutes of the game. They had a 1-0 lead. They bombarded Swayman. I think it was 12 shots in the first period. They should have had more goals, but Swayman was really good. Boston had 2 opportunities in the first period. One of them, unfortunately for the Leafs, was a clearing attempt by Simone Benoit that went off a skate, went right to Trent Frederick, who tied the game. And then it was sort of a chess match. It was sort of a back and forth, ebb and flow type of game where, one team had a good opportunity and then the other team there was no consistency to it. I mean, I think Boston was the better of the 2 teams in the late second to third period. And that's where Joseph Wall really stepped up and played excellent. I mean, really the Leafs are, I mean, I can't say they're playing with house money because, but they have to be playing with no pressure because everybody expects them to lose. I mean, everybody buried them when they were down 3-1 with a pathetic performance in Game 4. They sort of played. It was
they're not going to feel any pressure at home now because
no, that's where it ends. But it's like what I'm saying is like they sort of played like they had house money, and the Bruins were the ones that were tight. I didn't see it, but apparently Marchand was interviewed before the game, and whoever it was that interviewed him referenced not closing out against Florida. And he says, well, we're not going to talk about that. We're talking about this, like he was very, standoffish about it. And, I mean, I can understand because that was, they had the best record, I think, ever last year, and they lose this in 7 games to Florida. They don't want to hear about not being able to close. The Leafs played a good third period, and then late in the third period they had a couple opportunities.
And in case nobody's really been watching, I mean, Matthews didn't play. I mean, some people may not know, right?
Right. Well, no, that was Matthew Nye scored the overtime winner, and that sends the series back to Toronto for Game 6. But that what you just mentioned is the overriding factor here. They won. They won a defensive game. They played sort of Boston's game in Boston, played a pretty perfect road game, won. But I said on the convo yesterday, if they're going to win Game 6, they got to play a road game at home because if Matthews is not available, and that's the big question here, is whether Matthews will be available. Nobody knows, and probably we're not going to know what's going on. They say it's ancillary.
Did he travel or he go back early?
Yeah, he traveled. He skated for 5 minutes.
There. Okay.
Yeah, he was with
be that bad if he still stayed there.
Well, yeah, but I don't know if he was in the building. I don't
know. But you know what I mean? Like they would have rushed him home for that extra rest to not have to deal with all the extra days, like that extra day, that extra airport stuff. So I don't think he's that bad. I think he's going to play.
Well, I mean, he participated in the morning skate. He did not participate in the pregame skate. So I don't think they practiced today. At least there were no reports that they practiced. So we're not going to know until the morning skate tomorrow, and it'd probably be optional like it normally is in the playoffs. So we're probably not going to know until pregame. And if he doesn't play, then, I mean, Peter, the pressure should all be on Boston to close this out. But because the Leafs, and I still can't believe this statistic, since Game 7 of the 2022 first round against Tampa, they have lost 8 of 9 at home. 8 of 9. I don't know how you can look anybody in the face with that kind of friggin' record.
No, you can't. And it could simply just be weird probability. And now they're going to win 8 of 9 at home in the next 9. You don't know. Frankly, Sheldon Keefe should take a page out of what John Cooper did last year when he said, this is fun, right? The overtime games and stuff. He needs to find a way to say, hey, you guys thought we were down and out. We came back. Keep these guys loose. Keep it loose. He doesn't
know how to lighten up, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, he doesn't. But he, maybe he can do it internally. But frankly, like, you know what? If I'm the Leafs, you're without Austin Matthews. You've got the drama from the game with Matthews, Marner, and Nylander sitting there. You've got to find a way to say, look, everyone wrote us off again. Let's just go out and do our thing. and just keep going. Wool played fantastic.
World.
Yeah. And you know what? It's like you need someone to come out like Gretzky did in the 2002 Olympics for Canada and say, the same thing. It's like the whatchamacallit speech from the 72 series, the Summit Series with Russia.
Esposito.
The Esposito speech.
If the Leafs somehow win this series, please don't say you shocked the world, because that's the most overused.
Yeah. No. You got to just say, look, even our fans are counting us out. We just, we get why you are. We're trying. There's more to a game than simply just the record and the longevity of it. You know what? The Canucks have, been to the Stanley Cup Finals 3 times, tasted Game 7 twice, and didn't win. There's all sorts of weird things you can build in. Don't let the Leafs history and recent history and long history shape this.
Buried penalty shot.
Well, if Nathan Lafayette hadn't hit the post, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. If Luongo showed up against Boston,
if Matt Fratton had put it in the empty net against Boston in Game 7, then they wouldn't have completed the comeback. We'll just say this and then we'll get
Pasternak's hurt. Like the whole chat room, he got hurt. He hurt his shoulder. He's playing. Like that's the way it goes.
Yeah, he's not 100%. And I thought the most hilarious situation in that game was the Marchand getting wrestled down to the ice by the official, Steve. I think it was Steve Kazari. Yeah. And Jack Edwards, I just heard this about 5 minutes before we started the show. Jack Edwards calls the referee a coward.
Yeah, that was just. I know people like Jack, and I don't mind him. I think he's a good guy. But there is a point where you're just, you're saying something to just be outrageous, and there's no fact behind it. And to me, it's clownery at that point.
I mean, please, Marchand has gotten away with bloody murder in this series. I mean, he really has. I mean, in terms of like goading.
Yeah, there's no question. I've seen it.
And that was the first minor that he got in the entire playoffs, and he slammed the penalty box door. It was pretty hilarious. But yeah, the pressure is going to be on Toronto to break. And then just last thing, one media person from Toronto, Roger Lajoie, used to work for one of the radio stations. He was commenting on, it would have been Leafy if the Leafs had lost Game 5. And somebody responded to him, no, what is Leafy would be them winning Game 5, which they did, winning Game 6, going back to Boston in Game 7, and losing in Game 7 in overtime.
Right.
That would be Leafy. And I'll tell you right now, Russ, I'm blocking a certain phone number for the third period because I can just see that person texting me, congratulating me for a Toronto victory and trying to he's trying to curse it when he does that shit.
But Mike, the Buzztron picked the Leafs.
Oh yeah, okay, there you go. The Buzztron. The Buzztron. Okay, so tonight we have Vegas and Dallas. That series is tied 2-2. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that's obviously a telling game, and we'll see. This is the one where Dallas could prove it to me. But they've shortened their bench. They're only using really 5 defensemen now. But I have to tell you, that's all the Chicago Blackhawks did. When they won their last cup. You could do it. If you got the 5 horses, you could do it.
Hell, they used 3, Russ. They used
3 main, but they still went with 5. They usually, but that 6 never played.
Trevor Van Riemsdyk played about 5 minutes, and they played Keefe and Seabrook.
Lundqvist played like minute 2 the other day.
Yeah, so the other game is L.A. Edmonton. Probably Edmonton finishes off.
Yeah, I would think so.
But you never know. Maybe they force a 6th game. Maybe Edmonton takes the
David Rittich. You never know.
David Rittich, summons his inner such.
How many playoff wins does David Rittich even have?
I think he had 1 with Calgary. I mean, I could look it up, but I don't really care.
Yeah.
But again, I said this. This is a conspiracy, and believe me. I think it was Friedman. He said he talked to a bunch of general managers, and now there is a movement towards going back to the 1-8 conference setup for the playoffs, and that it should be that have the division winners 1 and 2.
I do believe that. I do believe that now that they are getting sick of it. So I was ahead of the curve on this, and so I do believe that there's some actual traction now.
Like. there's some entertaining things happening, but they're entertaining for the wrong reasons. In that you like the so the Vegas whatchamacallit, the Vegas Dallas matchup happens regardless.
Right.
Okay. But now if you've reseeded or you reseed in the middle of it, right? Like keep it so that there has some meaning to going through hell for 82 games, injuries and using LTIR and Undertaker, resurrections to have some meaning in this so that, you're not playing to just get walloped in the first round.
So yeah, here would have been the matchups had you'd gone the 1-8 scenario with the two division winners, 1-2. It would have been Dallas, Vegas, like you said. It would have been Vancouver, LA.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been Winnipeg, Nashville, and it would have been Colorado, Edmonton. Now, with a conference format, you can still have matchups against your own division. So it does give more meaning to your regular season record. You're just stuck. That 2-3 matchup in every division is death. It is absolute death. So, and in the East, it would have been, okay, let's see. It would have been New York, Washington, like it was. It would have been Florida Islanders. It would have been Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Boston, Toronto. So, a couple of the matchups would have been the same. A couple would have been different. I hope it does. But if this is a stick up Gary Bettman's, where, and it's the same thing like him not being in favor of expanded playoffs, then it's going to go nowhere. If he keeps saying, well, nothing is wrong. Yes, there's something wrong, Gary. There's something wrong. It's been wrong for years. Okay, so I think we talked, Russ, about Hackstall getting fired because that happened on Monday right before the show started. So, but the coaching carousel is starting to get interesting, especially with the news that Darren Drager reported this morning that the Hurricanes pulled their offer for Rod Brind'Amour. Now, I know because I had heard Brind'Amour might have been a candidate for the Buffalo job because of his relationship with Adams, but I think they were set on Lindy Ruff, and they were just going to go back to Lindy Ruff because of the obvious emotional ties. But there are some really primo jobs out there. Now, Brind'Amour is from Ottawa. I don't know whether that means anything in terms of, but I think the Sens might be a plum job. I think New Jersey might be a plum job.
A lot of people want the Sens job. Brind'Amour would not take the Sens job.
Right. Oh, I just said because he's from Ottawa. I don't know if that means anything. Seattle, we know the connection between him and Ron Francis. The Toronto job probably opens up if Keefe gets a
lot of guys want the Toronto job, no doubt.
Right, and we've heard Joel Quenneville's name mentioned. But would Brind'Amour be a candidate in Toronto? He would get paid in Toronto, no doubt.
Yeah, I think he might interview. Here's what I don't like about this. Like Don Waddell's the middleman, right? He's just doing his job. But as good as Rod Brind'Amour is, to ever pull an offer is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And there's no way Rod Brind'Amour is going to go look around and come back and say, if you don't pay me this, I'm leaving. He's not that guy. I'm telling you, if this offer doesn't go back on the table, Rod Brind'Amour is just going to take a job somewhere else and make a lot more money. And you can say he made an offer to the fans, and the fans aren't going to believe him. Like, this is just, you're playing with fire here. He should have been extended before the season began, knowing that he wants to be there based on his results.
Yeah.
It's a joke. The whole thing's a joke.
But Dundon is, I'm sorry to say this because, the guy's a billionaire. He's a successful guy. But in terms of what he pays his employees, he's a cheapskate. Brind'Amour should be one of the highest paid coaches in this league. But he's not. And
the loyalty he has shown, everything else, he's won for the organization. He was on the last Stanley Cup winning team. Like, come on, man. It's just, this whole thing, again, this is where I go, Pete. The owner wants to make money, and that's cutting into his bottom line.
Look, I'm going to be the contrarian here. And I don't disagree with what you said, Russ. Like, I don't believe that. There's only 32 jobs in the NHL for coaches. There's only 32 GM jobs for that. That's all there is.
Mm-hmm.
Any organization that has any kind of strategic, like a thought in its head, should have a list of people it's willing to approach and go. A coach should not be so needed that you're not willing to make them expendable, given that rosters change, GMs change, players and the players and the organization changes in terms of prospects, draft picks, and strategies can change at a moment's notice depending on how things go. You need to be nimble with a coach. I can get why you would sign one longer term. That's fine. But I wouldn't go to the mat and overpay. Usually, because you should be confident enough of what you see underneath and what you're doing away from your coach. And it's not that I don't think Rod Brind'Amour should be paid. I have no issue with Rod. What I'm saying is, though, in a general sense, I understand where Dundon's coming from, in that there should be 32 people. You should have a list of 32 people just for your organization. If your coach got hit by a bus or won the lottery, well, no, the lottery doesn't matter to those guys. But if you got something, you had to step away from the job for personal reasons and you weren't in the NHL, what would you do next? You should have that backup plan. There should be 32 names there. It is one of the most sought after apex jobs in the sports world, just like the NBA, just like the NFL, just like Major League Baseball, just like Premier League Soccer, and you name it. There should be people. You should make your organization a desirable choice for all sorts of reasons and pay according to what you think is fair with some wiggle room. But don't overpay, because there's just as many bad stories of overpaying. That doesn't mean Brind'Amour's not being treated the right way.
Right.
That's a different issue. But I understand why Dundon takes that approach. So far.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Don Waddell's been there for 7 years.
Yeah.
They've had some success. Do you trust Don Waddell with a search if Rob Brind'Amour is all of a sudden out of there and there's only 4 good coaches out there? You trust Don Waddell that he's going to get one of those guys? Because I don't think Carolina is a spot a lot of guys want to coach. I think that's the other part they're going to find out if Brind'Amour leaves. So just because the players are good doesn't mean coaches want to go there.
I think one of the areas that we don't have really good data on is actual performances of coaches and what they're able to do when they move. And there's coaches, what's the status of the roster that they inherit? What do they get them up to? And I think there's probably, if I'm an organization who's smart, I start looking at that data. I'm not saying Don Waddell would find the best person, but
it's a yes or no question. I asked him, do you think
yes, I think he could. I think he could.
Okay, see, I don't think he
because
could.
I don't think you need to get a superstar.
This has been the easiest decision for any GM over the last 7 years, is just to keep Rod Brind'Amour. And if the owner forces Don Waddell to do a search, I don't think he's going to come up with the best answer. I don't.
Well, I mean, he may not come.
We don't know what the best answer is until we've seen it.
We know he can't pay the most. So there's a problem.
Well, okay, Russ, he may not come up with. I mean, he might come up with a veteran coach who thinks that team is close to winning a Stanley Cup and they're willing to take a 2 or 3 year deal at lesser money for that chance to win something that they don't have.
How many of those coaches are actually out there, Mike? Seriously.
Okay, hang on.
Bruce Boudreau or something like that is out there.
That's what goes back to my point, meaning that you shouldn't be focused on that. What Don Waddell should be able to do is know who not to hire.
Right.
Okay, he may know that, but my point is he can't even go with a loaded barrel there because he knows he can't match other teams. So another team knows that, right? So if as an example, the Leafs are going for the same coach as Carolina, the Leafs are going to give more money.
Right.
If Carolina is going for the same coach as Seattle, Seattle's just going to offer more money.
Right.
Sure.
Okay. That's like
offer more money.
That's the biggest negotiating tool you have.
And Russ, even if it's not another NHL coach who has made money like a Quenneville, like a Bilesma, if they go after a Carl, the coach of Denver, he's going on a long-term deal, 5-6 years. He's going to make significant money. And, the one thing about him is, even though he's a great coach, he hasn't coached in the NHL. We don't know whether it translates.
You're getting tired of coming to the NHL and getting only like 2 or 3 years, and most of them are done after that. And
now, if you're frustrated, if you're Tom Dundon and you're frustrated that your team has not gotten as far as you thought it was going to, and then you need to make a change, fine.
Well, buy the Leafs then. Or the Canucks.
No, I'm sorry. Aside, here's the change. Fire Don Waddell, keep Rod Brind'Amour, find yourself a different GM.
So, and I will say my logic applies for GMs too. How much are you paying Don Waddell?
Nothing.
Who you
That's
could
the only
pay?
reason he's there. He's the lowest paid GM in the league.
So there you go.
I thought.
And let's assume he is, okay?
We know he is.
We know he is. So we know that. Is his record as a GM does it make it more valuable compared to his peers?
I mean,
so then you got to think Dundon's getting a good deal if it right, like
GMs and coaches,
it works both ways.
Yeah, GMs and coaches go hand in hand. A lot of times they do, they hold each other's fate a lot of times.
And so the goaltenders.
Right. But I'm just going to tell you, based on what Don did in Atlanta and in other places, that I feel like Brind'Amour could hold his own somewhere else. I don't know if Don Waddell could hold his own without Brind'Amour. Like that would be the big thing. If he brings in, and I'm going to bring up the name now, Mike, in Bilesma, who is the nicest guy in the world, but after winning a Stanley Cup has had 7 seasons with no playoffs.
Yeah.
Why would I hire him?
Well, remember
Buffalo, Mike. Give me an idea.
I was gonna say, remember a chunk of that was in Buffalo. So that's that's where playoff.
And he didn't win in Pittsburgh either.
That's where playoff dreams go to die, Russ. But I mean, the talk is, and like I said, Elliot Friedman, and Jeff Merrick reported on their podcast this morning that Bilesma might be a candidate for the Seattle job. And the interesting thing about that was they said Francis did not look like he wanted to fire Hackstall, but that there seemed to be some pressure from ownership because they need that Kraken team to be successful with an NBA team coming in the next couple of years. They want to make sure that they carve out, a piece of in that market where, like if we're successful, a team comes in, it's going to struggle for a while as an NBA team. They want to make sure that the Kraken are.
It sounds like the players got.
So let's look at the other side of why we take Francis out of the equation of his relationship with Brind'Amour.
Right.
What else has happened behind the scenes in Seattle? They've arguably put together a data team that it's about as good or follows in the exact same footsteps of what Francis did by bringing Eric Tulsky into Carolina. Right. It's the same situation. So if Brind'Amour understands that and can help his players understand it, there's a reason why you want to go after him. I think if you're Dundon, you're probably sitting there going, I'm paying a GM cheap. I've got a great data guy who I might be paying more to my GM. Like Tulsky might be getting paid more.
GM someday anyhow.
Yeah, and Tulsky's going to be a GM at some point.
He might be the GM in Carolina when Waddell gets
right, exactly. And there's all sorts of things. You just need to find a coach who can understand how our inherent systems in our culture of what we built in the organization works. That's a different approach to going, well, we got to find a name who's known how to win. Because so go back to the Bezos thing. Be very stubborn in vision and flexible in details. Mm-hmm. And that's how he looks at things. So if Dundon's vision is this and how he wants an organization to run, he's going to be stubborn about it. Yeah. He's going to be flexible with the details further down there. That's why we're in this decision. You can't get stubborn on that guy. You have to be stubborn on what you're trying to achieve. And if it's no longer in alignment, you're probably going to go with your vision.
Hold on. I want to answer Naz26. I don't like Rod Brind'Amour because he's a former Flyer. I grew up a Ranger fan. I didn't like Rod Brind'Amour as a player. I felt for Rod Brind'Amour, though, when Bobby Clark said, when he got rid of him, oh, what are you going to do? Go win the Selke somewhere? And he won the Selke the next year. He goes, he wasn't exactly a Selke Award winner when I traded him. And the next year, he wins the Selke. My whole thing is that Brind'Amour has proved everybody wrong many, many times over. I did cover him for the whole Stanley Cup run in 06 and was really impressed with the way that players followed him. So I knew he would go. He was going to be a coach.
Right.
And I saw how he acted in that room with Peter Laviolette as coach, and I was impressed with Rod Brindamore from that point on.
Okay. They're just, and we'll get off coaching here and talk about the Tampa Bay situation. But there's some chatter out there about Sullivan in Pittsburgh. Now, I don't know if it's Sullivan wanting to leave. Maybe he's reading the landscape and seeing, Crosby's getting old, Malkin's getting old. He can probably coach there as long as he wants Russ. But if he can go someplace else and, have a team that's up and coming like New Jersey or something like that, then that might be of interest to him. There's even some chatter about Cooper, but I just can't imagine Cooper leaving Tampa.
Cooper's not going anywhere.
Right. I just can't imagine it. So, but the coaching carousel will be interesting, and it'll be very interesting if Toronto gets into it, because that is a plum job, and anybody who, takes that one on and makes them successful, they'll be erecting a statue for him. So,
the only thing is, though, with the complication though with the Toronto job is it's going to come with some baggage. They're going to be like, listen, you can't do anything with this guy. We can't do anything with that contract. And just so you know, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And there'll probably be a few that won't take it that normally everybody would jump at the Toronto.
I mean, Russ, it's eerie how history is repeating itself, because, we go back 17, 18 years to that core group in 07 and 08, which they called the Muskoka Five, the five players that had no move clauses.
Right.
Sundin, McCabe, Caberlet, Pavel Kubina.
Pavel Kubina.
Yeah,
wow, that's a name I haven't heard.
Pavel Kubina and Darcy Tucker. They gave all of them no move clauses, and and when they started to fade, they were stuck. And they fired and that was all John Ferguson Jr.
Yeah.
So that's why he's held in such high regard by Leaf fans out there. But now you've got you don't want to trade Matthews, obviously. You don't want to trade Nylander, but you have Tavares at the end of a contract. He's not going anywhere. And if Marner doesn't want to go anywhere, he's not going anywhere either. So they're stuck, and that's why.
Mike, they are. But to tell the honest truth, if the Leafs go out in a leafy fashion the next game or game 7 and everything's there, why wouldn't Marner want to go, yeah, you know what? I need to get away from this for a whole host of reasons. And I think there's going to be as a GM at Treliving, you could talk to the agent and say, look, this isn't about us wanting to get rid of Mitch and do this. This is about, it's probably better for all of us.
Right.
And I think agents are way more accepting of when something's not working. They're prepared to work with a GM to make things happen.
Right.
And go from there. Like if you're Mitch Marner, getting out of that GTA area is probably the best thing that could happen for you for a whole host of reasons.
And he's probably strong and wants to be there. He probably listens to his dad who says, stay there.
Yeah.
Those things all matter.
Yeah. You know what? The last person you talk to about career advice is your parents.
Yeah,
absolutely.
His dad apparently is a rival for Carl Lindros in terms of a meddling father. And his agent is Darren Ferris. So, that's the thing. I mean, if at the end of this year, the agent goes to Treliving or Treliving goes to the agent and says, we're not interested in signing him to an extension. We would like to trade him. And Ferris says, well, we want an extension and we're not waiving our no move clause. Then they're stuck.
Right.
They're stuck. I mean, if you want, if it's a sign and trade and he gets an 8-year contract someplace, all he loses is a year on the contract. If he decides I'm staying here, I'm going to stick it to you.
So what happens if he exercises his right, Mike, the same as Matt Sundin did?
Well, the team is in a different place, Russ. That team that Sundin refused to waive the no move clause was not a playoff team.
That's fair.
They weren't going to make the playoffs. They were trying to trade him to contenders, like I think it was Vancouver and Montreal. He refused to waive the no move clause, and then he ended up going to Vancouver the next year anyway. So, my opinion of Matt Sundin, the player, is completely different from Matt Sundin, the guy. And, an organization that paid you $50 million over 5 years, they basically asked you to go play for another team for 2 months. They probably would have signed him coming back. And he said, no, I'm not going to waive my no move clause. That's why basically I have no respect for Matt Sundin. But so
here's the latest from Don Waddell himself through Weight Rough, his Twitter account. So D'Angelo's fine. He could play. X-ray's negative. Brett Pesce's out of a walking boot. If everything goes as expected, he should play in games in round 2. So at some point against the Rangers. CT scans and MRIs revealed that Jesper Fast suffered an injury to the muscle in his neck during the team's finale, so he's not playing for a while. There's a very quick timeline for an announcement regarding an AHL affiliation. So after 2 years, they're finally going to get.
You mean sending your prospects to Finland isn't working for you?
Good strategy. And again, that is something that Tom Dundon forced and was trying to get, from what we heard online, another team in the AHL. He wanted a new franchise, and the AHL is not interested in adding teams right now. So oddly enough, they're close to an affiliation thing. And then Don said he talks daily with Rod Brindamore about a contract extension. Rod wants to be a Hurricane for life. There's going to be a solution here very quickly. And so
that goes completely opposed to what Drager reported.
Right. And I think he's trying to keep the fans from jumping off the ship.
Yeah.
This is the problem, though. And either Pete put this or someone in the room put it. This is a terrible time to have this negotiation before you go up against the Rangers, who you lost to before.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good thinking strategy here.
Yeah, I love it. It's great timing.
One more thing. I'm going to have to out Randy here because he sent me a secret photo, and it was grape Kool-Aid, and he said that was a suitable replacement. And
it's not.
Grape Tang, and I told him that.
No, you're Randy. You're slipping. Last thing is the Stamkos situation in Tampa. Everybody's talking, roses and love and flowers and candies. I want to stay in Tampa, Stamkos. Well, we're talking daily with his agent where okay, why haven't you gotten the deal done?
Right.
And the reason is because, and I believe he's 34, so it's not a 35 and over contract.
Right.
So it's something that would be buyoutable at a certain point. I don't know. I don't understand why this isn't getting done. He wants to stay there. They want him, but they want him. This is the problem, Peter. They want him at a certain amount for a certain term. He was the best, or one of the 2 or 3 best players for the Lightning in the playoffs. And their problem is that team is not deep enough now to contend with the Floridas and the Rangers and Carolinas. And they have to have cost controls on certain players because they've locked up all these Cernaks and Points and Kucherovs, and they have to sign Hedman. They simply, I don't think, can afford to pay what Stamkos should get, and they're expecting him to take a hometown discount. And it's bullcrap. It is absolute bullcrap that they expect him to do this not once, but twice. He did it in 2016. He took $8.5 million when he was being offered 11 or 12.
But hold on. He didn't take a hometown discount, Mike. He decided he'd rather take that for whatever reasons he had.
Right.
That was his choice. It wasn't that they lowballed him. They just said, this is what we could. They came up with their number. He agreed to it.
Well, but the only thing is, Stamkos didn't say they're actually talking right now, and I think he is pissed off because he's a very prideful guy.
Yeah,
I had this farcical conversation on Sirius Beat. I was basically like Stamkos and his agent talking, saying, "Look, they've extended Hagel to like $6 million a year. They've done this guy for this much. Look what I've done for this organization, and they won't even give me a fair offer. Look at what I did this year. I've got 3 more good years. I'm walking."
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But that's now. I mean, before, Mike, I
Right.
just disagree with the premise that he took a hometown discount. He took what was offered to him. He could have gone back and said, "We'll meet it this way," and we don't know what happened to those things. But he accepted the deal. If he comes out and says in this deal, "Well, I took a discount to stay here," then that's a different story. But at this point, he's never said, "I took a discount."
Peter, that's been the perception, because I know for a fact he was offered more money from Toronto, from I think Detroit was another team. I know Buffalo was in it. They all had what Tampa offered, but he decided he wanted to stay in Tampa and win a Stanley Cup with the players that he had come up with. I understand that, but he was only paid $8.5 million, and he could have gotten 11 or 12. The people in the PA were not happy when Steven Stamkos.
No, and I think he's still going to ask for 9 a year, 8.5 to 9 a year,
and he should. And if he doesn't get it, I mean, at a certain point, you expect the organization to pay you what you're worth. And if I understand the whole Florida state tax thing, but when you're getting paid $2.5 million or $3 million less, which was what supposedly he was offered. Now, I think there are going to be a few teams out there on July 1st looking for center help. Boston, the Rangers, the Islanders, Detroit, Toronto, Buffalo. I think all those, Montreal, I think all those teams are interested in a guy like Stamkos. And apparently, Friedman says he's got a lot of friends in the league. And if he actually is going to go out there, those friends are going to be talking up, saying, "Come over here, come to Toronto, come to Buffalo." You know what I'm saying? A lot of people will be doing that. Stamkos might be the player that puts those teams, some of those teams.
Yeah, he might do that. By the way, John Cooper did walk back his comments.
Yeah, he did.
Go back in time, he would say it differently. He's got daughters at home. I believe him.
Yeah, I believe him too. I think Cooper's given the benefit of the doubt in the moment.
Andy Strickland pushing DJ Smith as the next coach out there, saying like if LA loses,
in LA,
yeah, for LA, and I don't know. I don't think he did a great job. I don't care that they were dysfunctional. I wouldn't hire him. Not for a market like LA.
He had a long look in Ottawa. I mean, it was what, 4 or 5 years at least. I mean, yeah. So I mean,
hire Jack Capuano. Everybody will love his hair. That's what they like in LA. They like good hair, and Cappy still has good hair.
That's great there, Russ. Thank you. All right, we'll end it there. We'll be back on Friday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Peter Tessier, for Russ Cohen, I am the growing horse, and with every word, Mike Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. My voice is